Hello and welcome back to another episode of Real People. This is episode 9, Knives Out review, the one that I've been waiting for the longest time. I'm very excited. I'm the host of Real People, Sam Elkins, and I'm joined today by two lovely guests, Griffin Roster and Meg Stewart. And this first section of the video will be spoiler-free, so if you haven't seen the video, you can watch for now. We'll warn you before we get the spoilers, so you can yeet on out of here. Alright, so, right off the bat, initial thoughts, Knives Out. What did you guys think?
I loved it.
I really liked it. I thought it was really, really good.
What are some things you guys liked about the film?
I loved the cast. I thought the cast was really good.
The casting was impeccable. Every single person really brought a depth to all the characters, regardless of how little screen time they may have had or otherwise. Were there any standouts to you think?
Definitely Chris Evans. Being able to go from Captain America, a character we loved and was just a standout guy and a Boy Scout, to his character in this movie, who is
a trust
everything
fund,
but that.
Spoiled kid. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to see. Ana de Armas, oh my goodness,
Yeah, she
killed it as Marta. She was the biggest standout in my opinion. There are just moments where throughout the film, a lot of times where she can have her eyes well up with immediately, and it's really impressive. I'm I could never.
I very much liked how anytime you had a question what does this mean, they would answer it, but that just left you with 2 or 3 more questions okay, I know this now, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
I thought they did a really nice job because they were dealing with some serious content, there was a murder and the family's grieving, but the comedy they put in throughout was so nice, and it just made it really easy to watch and fun.
When you're talking about characters, you gotta think of Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
That southern accent,
Yeah.
how he pulled that off is
I was
very
shocked.
well.
Yeah.
And his whole character of just this Sherlock Holmes just type of he sees everything that's going on and is able to deduce everything.
Yeah.
And then how it all comes to fruition is very interesting.
One thing with his accent, though, is maybe it's just me. I couldn't quite place where in the South. It was just maybe they just told Daniel Craig, be Southern,
Yeah.
and didn't really give him another direction.
He definitely seems like he is a actual character from one of those murder mystery novels that you read, where it's just these overcomplicated murder plots, and he just thinks, oh, it's definitely these 50 things had to have happened for this to happen, and just how simplistic it could be. He doesn't really address it, which is perfect for that role.
Yeah. And the setting for this film too, in that big mansion that there's a line in the beginning that Lakeith Stanfield's character has where he's the guy lives in a clue board, and it's it's so funny because it really feels that way because there's a study and then there's this bedroom and the kitchen and all these other different distinct rooms, and it has this almost gothic feel to it that really makes it's really a big homage to this classic whodunits while also cementing its own place as a classic whodunit, in my opinion. Alright, so that ends the spoiler-free version. Now it's time to pick it apart piece by piece. Where do we want to begin?
I was so surprised how much Ana de Armas' character was the focus.
Yes.
Going in, I had no clue she would be the main character. I assumed it would just be Daniel Craig solving a mystery.
I loved that, That was really smart, a distraction.
And after I watched the film, I went back and watched all the trailers, because I was also shocked that she was so important in it, and they had no lines for her in any trailers. It was just her walking up to a portrait and looking at it, and then
her
not much
going
else.
this.
Yeah.
And that was really about it.
I love how it set up her character. You always wanted to be on her side,
Mhm.
no matter what.
Yeah.
As soon as you found out or you found out what you thought you found out, you were still like, oh, but she'll definitely get away with it. Like, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Everything will be fine.
Going back to how Harlan handled it, I thought it was really funny how he's like, oh, this is a really interesting method of murder.
Yeah, he just writing it down so he could put it.
I should put this in one of my books. She's like frantically looking for the antidote, and yeah, no, that was really good. You know, with like illusions, they have like the distraction or whatever make you look one way while they're doing the illusion elsewhere. So that's what, like, you know, they make you think you know everything, so you let your guard down, and they're like, oh, maybe Ransom isn't that bad a guy. Like he's an asshole, sure, but he's funny. Like, and, you know, Harlan seemed to like him because Harlan would say things like, I see a lot of myself in him.
Yeah.
And he's talking all, like, about him and, like, how he's smart, actually really smart, he just doesn't apply himself and all this stuff. And so I'm like, oh, maybe he's actually a nice guy, he's not as bad. But then the reveal at the end, it's like, now you understand exactly what he was doing the whole time. So it was really smart how they twisted that.
His whole plan was so well thought out. Mm-hmm. It does make you think if he had applied himself, he probably wouldn't be the black sheep of the family.
Yeah, and it makes sense too because he was the grandson of a murder mystery writer who comes up with these convoluted plots like this. Yeah. And he even said that he did a summer as his research assistant during it, so he worked with him on the books. And he was one of the people that could beat Harlan at that game that they played. Yeah. And so it makes sense that he would be able to come up with a plot like this. And that he's also dramatic because they say that, you know, he and Harlan like to fight in front of the family because they're both so dramatic. So of course he's going to do something dramatic as like the big plan to kill Harlan. And there's one line... Going back and watching it the second time, there's one line at the beginning that is so funny the second time around. Harlan is talking about Ransom, and he's like, kid couldn't tell a real knife from a prop.
Yep. And
then at the end, he grabs the fake knife and tries to kill Marta, but it's a prop. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Once they give you that initial reveal that Marta did it, then you start to question whether Daniel Craig's character is actually a good detective.
Yeah.
Because he was doing some good things, but at the same time he had the perpetrator or whatever right next to him the whole time, and then at the end they had that toward the end they had that funny line where it's like, you're not much of a detective.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you're not much of a murderer. I thought that was so funny. But then it ends up like he kept her close to him because he knew she was...
Yeah, because of the blood on her shoe.
Yeah. Which, going back and watching that a second time, the very first time he meets her, he looks directly at her shoes right away. I was like,
I did not notice that. One of the best jokes, the long-running jokes that they kept had, is anytime they would mention where Marta's family is from, they get it wrong each time. They say a different country. Yeah. Oh, they're from Mexico, or they're from Brazil.
Or Ecuador, Uruguay, Paraguay. Oh my goodness.
It was very funny how they did that.
Yeah.
And then they're all outvoted that she couldn't be at the
panel. I was outvoted.
Like 3 different people say they were outvoted, but it's like, well, who voted?
Yeah, no, it's so funny because it definitely... It's they had like this sort of, you know, a lot of different little mini social commentaries throughout the film, including the family is definitely kind of a representation of like white America in general, and just sort of this condescending attitude of, oh, I'm not racist. See, I talked to this caretaker here that's from this one country that I don't know or whatever, and it's like, come over here, what do you think about immigration and like stuff like that. Like the only time they want to talk to her is like when it's about certain things like that or their inheritance, and that kind of stems from a sort of selfish narcissism, really.
I do think this is the perfect movie to have been released Thanksgiving weekend because of how the family interacts.
Yeah.
It just definitely seems like everyone has that one family member who just talks too much or is very politically leaning one way or the other. Yeah. It very much felt like it was perfect for its time.
Overall, definitely my top 5 favorite films from 2019.
overall it was so fun. And I definitely went in with one thought of how I thought it would turn out, and then it was completely different. I was so happy to be surprised, and it was just very fun. Go see it if you haven't, and then see it again, and then see it again a third time for good measure.
Definitely see it. I think Rian Johnson should win for best screenplay. I think how well thought out the whole movie had to be for that to work. I think it definitely deserves some credit, and it was very effective at what it did.
All right, so that's all the time we have today for Real People Episode 9 Knives Out review. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Sam Elkins. This has been Griffin Roster and Meg Stewart. All right, thanks for watching.